The night was darker than any goblin could remember. Thick clouds covered the twin moons of Eldris, and the ancient city of Thornwall slept without knowing what crawled through its shadows. Grimtooth pressed his small green body against the cold stone wall of the royal palace. His yellow eyes glowed faintly as he signaled to his crew. 7 goblins, the finest thieves in all the underground kingdoms, had spent 3 years planning this moment. The royal vault of Thornwall was legendary. It held the crown jewels of the human empire, treasures collected over 2,000 years of conquest and trade. Diamonds the size of goblin fists, rubies that burned like frozen fire, and the greatest prize of all, the Star of Humanity. This single gem was said to contain the first light that ever touched human eyes when they emerged from the caves of their ancestors. Grimtooth had studied the vault for so long that he dreamed about it. He knew every guard rotation, every magical trap, and every secret passage. The goblins had bribed, stolen, and killed to get this information. They had even captured a dwarven locksmith and forced him to reveal the vault's mechanical secrets before throwing him into a deep pit. The leader raised his clawed hand and made a series of quick gestures. His crew moved like smoke through the darkness. Skitter, the smallest of them, squeezed through a drainage pipe that no human or elf could fit through. She emerged inside the palace kitchens and immediately went to work on the food stores. She poured a sleeping powder into the wine barrels that would be served to the night guards. Within an hour, the guards began to yawn. They fought against the drowsiness, but their human bodies betrayed them. One by one, they slumped at their posts, lost in dreams they would not remember. Grimtooth watched from outside as the lights in the guard towers flickered and went still. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans were so predictable. They thought themselves masters of the world, but they ate and drank without checking for poison. They slept when they should have watched. They trusted locks and walls to protect them from creatures who had lived in darkness for 10,000 years. The goblins entered the palace through 7 different points. They moved through servants' passages and forgotten corridors that the humans had long abandoned. These passages were too small for the tall folk, but perfect for goblin bodies. The creatures had been built for this kind of work, shaped by evolution to crawl through tight spaces and see in complete darkness. Razorfang, the cruise trap expert, led them to the vault door. It stood 3 times the height of a goblin, made from solid steel and enchanted bronze. Human runes glowed softly on its surface, powered by magic that had been cast centuries ago. Any creature who touched the door without permission would burst into flames. But Razorfang had prepared for this. He pulled out a small bottle containing the blood of a human noble. The blood had cost them dearly. They had kidnapped the Duke of Westmere's son and drained him slowly over several days before leaving his body in a river. The Duke still searched for his missing heir, never knowing that his son's blood would open the most secure vault in the Empire. Razorfang painted symbols on the door using the noble blood. The runes flickered, confused by the royal essence. For a moment, they blazed bright red, and the goblins feared they had failed. Then the light faded, and the door's magic went silent. Nitpick, the lockpicker, stepped forward. His fingers were unnaturally long, mutated by generations of selective breeding among the Goblin Thieves Guild. He could feel the tumblers inside any lock as if they were part of his own body. He worked for 20 minutes, sweat dripping down his gray-green skin. Then came the most beautiful sound any thief could hear, the click of a lock surrendering. The vault door swung open slowly, revealing treasures that took even the goblin's breath away. Mountains of gold coins rose from the floor. Chests overflowed with precious gems. Crowns and scepters and ceremonial swords lined the walls, each one worth more than entire goblin cities. But the goblins ignored all of this. They had come for one thing only. In the center of the vault, floating above a pedestal of pure white marble, was the Star of Humanity. It was a diamond unlike any other, perfectly clear yet containing swirling colors that seemed to move like living things. The gem was the size of a human heart, and it pulsed with a soft light that felt almost warm. Grimtooth approached it carefully. He knew this gem was protected by the oldest and strongest magic in the human world. The legend said that any non-human who touched it would die instantly, their soul torn from their body and consumed by the gem's hunger. The goblin leader pulled out his final tool, a glove made from the skin of a human child. The child had been born with a rare condition that made her immune to magic. Such children appear perhaps once in 1,000 years, and the goblins had waited patiently for one to be born. They had stolen her from her village when she was just 3 years old, raised her in darkness, and harvested her skin when she turned 10. Grimtooth slipped on the glove and reached for the Star of Humanity. The gem trembled as his fingers approached, sensing that something was wrong. But the child's skin fooled its ancient protections. The goblin's claws closed around the diamond, and he lifted it from its resting place. Nothing happened. No alarms, no magical fire, no death. The goblins could not believe their success. They had done it. They had stolen the most precious treasure in the human world, a gem that symbolized humanity's rise from primitive cave dwellers to masters of an empire that spanned 3 continents. They fled through the palace as quickly as they had come. By the time the sleeping guards woke up, the goblins were already miles away, racing through underground tunnels that connected to their hidden kingdom. They laughed and celebrated, imagining the chaos that would erupt when the humans discovered their loss. The sun rose over Thornwall, and the theft was discovered within hours. The human emperor's rage shook the walls of his throne room. He declared war on all goblin kind, promising that every green-skinned creature would be hunted down and exterminated. He sent armies into the mountains and forests, burning goblin settlements wherever they were found. But the goblins did not care. They believed they were safe in their deep underground cities, where no human army could reach them. They displayed the Star of Humanity in their own throne room, a trophy proving goblin superiority over the tall folk. What the goblins did not understand was that humans were different from other races. Elves would have mourned and written poetry about their loss. Dwarves would have built stronger vaults and accepted their shame. Orcs would have raged and eventually forgotten. Humans did none of these things. Instead, they planned. 6 months after the theft, a human woman arrived at the gates of the Goblin Kingdom. She was alone, unarmed, and asked only to speak with their king. The goblins laughed at her foolishness. They dragged her before King Grimtooth, expecting him to execute her for entertainment. The woman smiled at the Goblin King. She told him her name was Elena, and she had come to make a trade. She said she could offer the goblins something more valuable than the Star of Humanity. Grimtooth was curious despite himself. What could possibly be more valuable than the gem that sat on his crown? Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small glass vial. Inside was a dark liquid that seemed to absorb all light around it. She explained that this was a poison developed by human alchemists designed specifically to kill goblins. A single drop in a water supply would kill every goblin who drank from it within 3 days. The Goblin King laughed. His people had thousands of water sources. The humans could never poison them all. Elena nodded slowly. Then she explained that this same poison had already been introduced into 80% of the underground rivers that fed the Goblin Kingdoms. Human agents had been spreading it for months. The goblins had 3 days to return the Star of Humanity and surrender, or their entire race would be extinct within a week. Grimtooth's laughter died in his throat. He ordered his guards to seize the human woman, but she held up her hand. She explained that she was the only one who knew the location of the antidote. If she did not return to the surface within 24 hours, the antidote's location would die with her. The Goblin King stared at the human for a long time. He had underestimated them. All goblins had. They thought humans were slow, stupid, and easily fooled. But humans had been playing a longer game, a game that goblins could not even see. Grimtooth thought about fighting. He thought about torturing the location out of Elena, but he saw something in her eyes that stopped him. It was not fear, not hatred, not even satisfaction. It was patience. The same patience that had allowed humans to rise from nothing while goblins hid in their caves. The same patience that built empires and conquered worlds. The Goblin King removed his crown and handed the Star of Humanity to Elena. He ordered his entire treasury brought forward, everything his people had stolen from humans over the centuries. He even released the human prisoners his people had taken for food and labor. Elena accepted all of this with a simple nod. Before she left, she gave Grimtooth one final piece of information. She told him that the poison was never real. There was no antidote because there had never been any threat. The humans had simply told a convincing lie and watched the goblins destroy themselves with fear. Grimtooth collapsed on his throne as Elena walked out of his kingdom. His people stared at him in silence. They had given away everything, betrayed by their own terror of what humans might do. The Goblin King understood then why humans ruled the surface world. It was not because they were stronger or faster or more magical. It was because they could think in ways other races could not imagine. They could be patient when others rushed. They could be cruel when others showed mercy. They could lie with faces that showed only truth. And most importantly, they never forgot and never forgave those who wronged them. Elena returned to Thornwall as a hero. The Star of Humanity was placed back in its vault, now protected by guards who never ate or drank anything that had not been tested 3 times. The Emperor rewarded Elena with titles and gold, but she refused them all. She asked only for permission to continue her work protecting the Empire from its enemies. In the Goblin Kingdoms, King Grimtooth's reign ended that same night. His own people tore him apart for his weakness. But the new king was no better, and the one after that was worse. The goblins had lost something they could never regain. They had lost their belief that they could outsmart humans. The crown jewels remained safe in Thornwall for another 1,000 years. Other thieves tried to steal them, elves and dwarves and dark spirits. All of them failed. And whenever a young goblin asked why their people no longer raided the human kingdoms, the elders would tell them the story of the night the crown jewels vanished. They would explain that stealing from humans was easy, but surviving their revenge was impossible. The humans heard these stories too, passed down through generations as warnings and lessons. They reminded humanity that their greatest weapons were not swords or magic, but their minds and their patience. They had outlasted dragons and survived demon invasions. They had built cities that touched the clouds and ships that sailed between stars. And they had done it all by being exactly what other races underestimated: clever, patient, and absolutely ruthless when protecting what was theirs. The Star of Humanity glowed softly in its vault, containing the light of human ambition that would never fade. It had been stolen once and recovered. It would be targeted again in centuries to come. But it would always return to human hands, because that was simply what humans did. They endured. They adapted. And they always won in the end.